on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Karate Kid's Legends. I saw it. My opinions on it are so insanely mixed. So we're kind of going to go through it together and kind of like critique what little things I want to critique and just talk about what's good, the bad, the ugly. So let's dive into it.
Modern Movie Review.
Okay, so I do want to go ahead and start off with something very positive, which is Ben Wang's performance is absolutely incredible as this new Karate Kid. I think that he brings a lot of very good energy to this role. I think that he's incredibly fun to watch, and I love his emotional layers that he's able to give us in this movie. He has a very traumatic past, and it's something that he is kind of diving deeper into. The more we get into this film, we start off getting like slight clues and hints as to what's happened in the past, and we eventually get to see the flashbacks of the traumatic experience that he has experienced. And the way that he's able to play these very emotional sequences are incredibly real, and I think that he had an incredible presence here. And obviously he's acting alongside Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio, who are relatively big actors, and I think that he brings a very great presence on screen, and I did really like that. I thought that that was a nice added touch here. And I will say, obviously, Jackie Chan brings his Jackie Chan energy to this, and I will probably love anything you ever put Jackie Chan in ever. He has so much fun energy in this. He has some of the greatest laugh out loud moments in the entire movie, and I do really love his presence, and it definitely feels very needed. That being said, Ralph Macchio, I will say this, as somebody who is 20 years old, I don't have the same nostalgia for the original Karate Kid movie that a lot of people have. Seeing him in this movie probably is a very big delight for those people. I think that he also is in Cobra Kai, and I personally haven't seen Cobra Kai, so I can understand why it potentially would be like super duper insanely excited that he's in this movie, but his character doesn't add anything to really train the main character in this movie. He doesn't give him any important life lessons. And the main thing that they do is they talk about two branches of a different tree, and they kind of want to like, you know, bring everything together. And they don't really do that much with his character, and he comes in really late into the movie, and it does really feel like kind of a glorified cameo, which is not what I would have gotten from the advertisements for this movie. And I think that that's one of my biggest gripes with it. Is the first act of this movie, I really enjoyed. It's a new Karate Kid moving to a new city, and he actually just left his sensei because his sensei lives in Beijing, and he's moving to New York City. So he's also, because of some of the traumatic stuff that's happened in the past, not going to be fighting anymore. And so you kind of get to see how he's transitioning from constantly doing karate and really being a big fan of Kung Fu to now he's just trying to live a normal life as a teenager in America, and things are very different. And then he gets this interesting opportunity, which I absolutely love. And this entire subplot I thought was phenomenal, and I really wish we got to spend more time with it. And honestly, if they had made this the entire movie, I would have loved it. I understand that that's not what they were going for because they wanted to have some bigger named stars in it and they wanted to have bigger talent. But at the beginning of this movie, it is established relatively early on that this version of the Karate Kid, I'm blanking on the name of the actual character in the movie right now. I think it's Lee. But Ben Wang's character, he is very experienced in the dojo. He's probably the most trained person there. And he has this like level of confidence and this skill that so far he really doesn't look like he needs to be trained. Like, he's absolutely fantastic. He's mastered the craft. And so we get to see him training somebody who boxes, which is a very different kind of fighting, how some of the ways that Kung Fu works. And the way that he kind of explains it is like everything is Kung Fu, and then, you know, they're working at a pizza shop because this is New York and they want to make it feel as New York as possible, which is something I love. I think that they did a great job of making New York kind of feel like its own character, which is something I love. And New York-based movies, when they're able to make New York City feel a specific way, oh, it's fantastic. And this movie nailed that for sure. But you get a lot of fun moments with this Ben Wang's character teaching this old retired boxer named Victor how to fight. And they have these fun training montages that, in my opinion, are the best training montages in the movie. They're, you know, working at this pizza shop. It feels really good. And they're, you know, able to turn those simple tasks into training opportunities, which is like one of the special things about, you know, the original Karate Kid movie, the whole wax on, wax off. I think that there's a lot of potential here, and we're getting a really great story. And then, you know, he's working up the guy who Ben Wang is training to box or whatever. He's working up so that he could do a boxing match so he can make some extra money and be able to like stay afloat because rent is expensive. This is New York after all. And eventually we finally get to see them do this boxing match. Ben's character is sitting in the corner, kind of like cheering him on, and he's like, "You can do this. We believe in you." And they end up losing the fight because the opponent fought dirty. He gets hospitalized, and then that entire subplot just kind of gets thrown out the window. And it kills me because the Karate Kid, being the trainer and being like the sensei of this movie, was a very interesting dynamic. And I really loved that. I thought that was interesting. There was also a side love story plot with the character Mia, who's his love interest in this. I think that was adorable. Obviously, they didn't flesh it out that much, but I do really like the whole concept of him being new to New York and him kind of having a new friend dynamic with this girl, and, you know, her kind of showing him around New York and him kind of explaining things about Chinese culture. So when they go to Chinatown, he can kind of teach her Mandarin and stuff like that. I thought that was a really cute dynamic. The coming of age elements in these movies are always something that I look forward to, because coming of age movies are low-key my favorite kind of movie to really dive into, because as somebody who was 15 years old when COVID hit and the entire, you know, country kind of shut down, I feel like that's a part of my life that I missed out on. So whenever I get to see it in movies, it does really excite me. So I loved all of that elements. I think that was fun. There's a side character that's his tutor, who is absolutely hilarious. He's not in the movie for very long, but every single time he does show up, he's just, you know, a couple quick lines here and there, and they're usually pretty funny. And overall, I do think that is something this movie got well. The humor is pretty solid throughout this film. But to get into some of my biggest issues with this movie. So the first act, like I said, really interesting, really unique, doing something new. They're slowly building up this, you know, traumatic experience that happened with this character and why he's not allowed to do kung fu anymore. And then finally, about around that halfway point, we learn why he is as emotional as he is, and why he's gone through all these hardships, and why he's having a hard time going back to karate, even though it's something he's clearly passionate about. And we see that, you know, he's had issues in the past. His brother, I didn't want to say the word because I didn't issue a spoiler warning, but also the trailer very heavily implies what happens. So it's like one of those things where it's like, is it a spoiler? I don't know. Technically it is, but he, you know, couldn't protect his brother, so now he feels like anytime somebody gets hurt and he could have done something to stop it, that it's his fault. But he also thinks that him fighting is also going to lead to there being more fights and there being more violence in his life, which is never a good thing. So he has this very interesting conflict there. But then after, you know, things happen and his friend Victor, who was in the boxing match, is now hospitalized, he decides, you know what, yeah, I am going to fight. I'm going to continue fighting because it's okay if I'm risking my own life, which feels like such an odd character choice. And I understand it's one of those things where it's like, that's the premise of the film. Obviously, he's going to get back into karate, and karate is going to be a really big thing for him. And specifically, Jackie Chan as his, you know, sensei has kind of been saying this whole time, like, karate is healing his soul. Karate is really good for him. He needs to be back in karate, and it's like this really good thing. And I love it, but it just seems so out of the blue. And so we go from this first act that's very cohesive, has a lot of emotional depth to it, has a lot of interesting, you know, coming of age elements to it. He's really trying to discover himself and kind of flip a new leaf in New York City as more of a mentor figure as opposed to somebody who's actually fighting, to all of a sudden Jackie Chan is there to train him, and he's going to LA so he can find Ralph Macchio, and he could also train him. And together, the two of them are going to quickly train him up so that he can do this fighting tournament that's in 10 days from now. And the last second act and third act of this movie, like once we get Ralph Macchio into the film, it's like a montage after a montage after a montage after a quick moment with the two characters having like a very cute like sob story moment, and then they continue on. And it's so weird how this movie that had a really good pace and was going relatively slow and really introducing the characters and, you know, spending a lot of time in New York City and making this a very interesting, unique movie, they immediately are like, oh, that's right, Karate Kid is just supposed to have a bunch of random action sequences and training montages, and that's all it does for the rest of the movie. And the editing decisions are weird. The the needle drops are painfully bad. I have a Letterboxd account. I don't think I've ever advertised it on here, but when I made my out of theater, like, immediate thoughts, literally while I was watching the credits roll, my first thing that I had to point out, the needle drops in this movie are so bad that it genuinely ruined the movie for me. And part of the reason I say this is it's the most popified, cliche, overused songs ever. And because of that, this movie that already kind of feels like every other karate movie you've ever watched feels just that much more forgettable because it's just playing music from every other movie you have ever watched. And it is really annoying because every time this movie did something new and original and felt fresh in some kind of way, it would then play some like 80s song that is like in so many movies. And I was like, oh my God. And then even the third act, when we finally get this fight sequence between the antagonist, who is very underdeveloped, and our main character, they play this like song that I couldn't even tell you what song it is right now, but it's a song that if you've ever watched like Americans Got Talent or any, you know, kind of game show where somebody wins, it's like this person just won a game show and then they instantly play this little victory song. And like I said, I can't remember what song it is right now, but it's so overplayed that it literally killed the moment. They were like all celebrating and being excited, and then that song comes on and it's like, I can't even be happy anymore because this is the most overused song. And I know that's such a critique, that's such a nitpick. Some of you guys are going to watch the movie and this probably isn't going to bother you. It bugged me to no end. I literally could not stand that. But yeah, that was a lot of my main issues with the movie. For the most part, I still think it's relatively entertaining. Like I said, there's a couple of moments that made me laugh out loud throughout this movie, and I think that the Ben Wang is pretty good. Like, he's the main character and he's in the majority of the movie, and I think he's good in the majority of the movie. There's one in particular action sequence that I think is awesome. It's in an alleyway and it's in the first act of the movie and it's very fun, but all the other action sequences, in my opinion, don't really live up and they're not that interesting. And I saw this actually when I was scrolling through Letterboxd. Somebody said that this movie makes Cobra Kai look like an absolute masterpiece. So as somebody who hasn't seen Cobra Kai, I need to go watch it. But overall, this movie was just relatively disappointing for me. So I'm going to give this movie, on a scale of 1 to 100, a solid 66. I think that it has a lot of decent elements to it. I think that there's definitely something to enjoy about it. But between the just overall, just it feels so rinse and repeat with the other Karate Kid movies, the terrible soundtrack that I could not get on board with, and just a lot of moments and characters that just kind of felt underdeveloped, I could not enjoy this movie as much as I wanted to. That being said, feel good movie. It's different for everybody else, so you know, if you want to go see it and enjoy it, please let me know how you guys thought this movie was down below. But I'm gonna go ahead and sign out here. Thank you guys so much for coming by and checking it out. I love and appreciate you guys, and if you guys liked it, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bow, bow, bow.